Okay, now we're recording. Well, welcome. Welcome to our conference. We're very excited. We're organizing this conference with Elaine and Kristine. Both of them are graduates from the USC coaching program. And we started this conference last year. Last year was our first conference at USC. And we partnered with International Coach Federation Los Angeles chapter to have a local conference where coaches could come and build community, get to know each other, learn from each other. So this year is our second conference. Again, we partner with ICF Los Angeles. And but the advantage is because we cannot do it in person, now we have a global community getting together. And we have here, Elaine, we're going to do an exercise about what countries are represented. But I think around 10 countries are represented, people from all over the world. So this is a great opportunity to build community, to learn. Our goal with Kristine and Elaine in these 2 days is that you're going to learn new ideas, new content. We're going to be working not only about doing, but being who we're being as coaches. We work in coaching a lot about the being of the client. And we ask the who questions about who the client is being. But this is going to be about the coach, who the coach is being in this difficult time. So that is going to be what we are going to be working on in these 2 days. And in this being, we are going to embrace a systemic perspective. And many people who are here have participated at USC coaching program, Center for Nonprofit Management, NAS, LA County program, different places where I have been training coaches, and also people from the supervision programs. So we were a little bit surprised because half of the people here have been trained as coaching supervisors. What bring, I think, the level of the whole conference to a higher level, because that means that they're very experienced coaches. So I think that there is going to be a great opportunity to learn from each other in these 2 days. And this is our goal, is that we are all going to be learning from each other. We're going to be focusing on this book, Systemic Coaching. This is our context for the conference. And the two authors, Eve Turner and Peter Hawkins. Eve Turner did the pre-conference, an amazing session. If you were not here, I highly recommend you watch the recording. For a few minutes, Elaine and Kristine are going to do a summary of the key learning from Monday, in case you were not here. And then we are going to be focusing on systemic coaching, and it's the next level of thinking. Is thinking not just about what do I need, what do I want in the perspective as a client, but what the world needs. So one of the questions that we are changing is, instead of asking the client, what do you want to work on today? Maybe the question is, what the world needs us to be working today? What your stakeholders need from you to be working today? Can you hear the difference between what do you need to work on today and what the world and what the stakeholders need you to be working on today? It's a different question. So what we are going to be doing these 2 days is to start shifting the way that we may be thinking about coaching, working at coaching, being coaches. Now, some of you may not be coaches. I know that we have 60 people, and maybe there are 5 or 6 leaders from USC who are not coaches, maybe yet. Maybe after the conference, you may be interested in becoming a coach and do the USC coaching certification program. That doesn't matter. When we talk about coaching, you look at your job as a leader or as a manager or in your roles, whatever your role is, how this applies to that work that you are doing. Okay, so if you are not a coach, don't worry, you can still look at these things from that perspective. And with that in mind, I am going to ask to do like a brief centering exercise. We went back and forth about what we're going to do, but I think I am going to do the centering after Kristine and Elaine introduce each other. Go ahead.
Well, so I'm next in our revised plan. But my name's Kristine Moe, and I had the privilege of taking Damian's coaching training program for leadership at USC about 6 years ago. I was part of the third cohort. What was lovely is Damian connected me with somebody, another cohort member who was creating a mastermind. We got together, the mastermind morphed, and Susan Mitros and Elaine are part of that. They're in the audience. Elaine, obviously. But I've been privileged to continue my coaching, to have the supervision of Damian, to have the supervision of Jason Sackett from the Center for Work and Life Family. And I that's been my growth area, and I'm thankful for this opportunity. With that, I have the privilege of announcing our sponsors, and we have ICF LA, so International Coach Federation Los Angeles. Thank you. We have also represented our sponsor is USC Price Executive Master of Leadership. I think we have a few people from that program, and also Goldvarg Consulting, who put this all together. So with that, I pass it on to Elaine.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So glad to see so many of you here from around the globe. My name is Elaine Padilla, and so I was part of Damian's training at USC. Let's see, if Kristine did it 6 years ago, then I did it 7 years ago. And same thing, coach supervision involved in the ICF LA chapter, which is wonderful. And I can't believe that I'm involved in a conference about coaching. I could not have envisioned that. And I love the community feel, just the awesome network of people that I've had a chance to get to know, and just all the great sessions and Damian's supervision to grow as a coach. So I want to do a little icebreaker to get to know each other a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is ask everyone to turn off their cameras. And when I call your country, turn on your camera, unmute yourself, and introduce yourself quickly. So everyone will have a chance to say hello. So if you can turn off your camera, I'm going to start with the beginning of the alphabet. So if you are from Argentina, turn on your camera and say hello. We want to hear your voice.
Hello everybody. Hello.
Alicia, okay, Maria, Aida.
Yes.
¿Quién más es de Argentina?
Nancy.
Oh, Nancy, okay, welcome. Damian, Maru.
No, Maru needs to turn off the camera. Maru,
Oh, Maru's not.
Your camera when your country is called. So when your country is called, you turn on your camera.
Okay. And Gerardo, okay, wow, awesome.
From
Welcome.
Argentina, living in Uruguay.
Okay.
And
Great, welcome.
And Nancy and I, we are Argentinians, but we live in Los Angeles.
Okay, great. All right, let's see, who's next? Canada. Do we have any Canadians here today? Turn on your camera, say hello. Michelle, Lynn, Natalie, welcome.
Hello.
Say hello.
My camera won't. Oh, hi. Hello, everyone. Happy to be here with all of you.
Good. Welcome. Hi, Lynn.
Hello.
Okay, let's see. Next up, I heard there was somebody from Germany. Is it anyone from Germany here today? Maybe they're not on yet. Let's see.
That is Petra. Petra is not here yet.
He's not, okay, not here yet. Japan.
Hello, this is Andrew from Japan. Well, great to be here.
Great. And where's home originally?
Home originally is in the East Coast, United States.
Okay, all right. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see here. Italy. Has our guest from Italy arrived? Not yet.
Yes.
Hello.
Oh, there she is. Oh, we got two. Wow.
Hello, I am Italian but based in the UK, so I'll appear to this.
Okay. Oh, I was
I'm
supposed
based
to.
in Rome, and so I will appear at once.
Okay. Oh, I was supposed to visit Italy this summer. It didn't happen. Maybe next summer. Let's see here. Mexico. I know there's lots of Mexicans on the call. Unmute yourself. Say hello.
Hola.
Hello.
Desde México.
Hi.
Hola.
All right. Juan Francisco, Pilar,
Hello.
Norma,
Hello.
Ana. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see here. Oman. Not yet.
Benita is not here yet.
Okay.
Benita.
And then was UK, who's only one person from the UK? Okay, that was Lucia. United, oh, yes. You get to come on twice. Hello again. All right, the US. Who's on the West Coast? Let's start with West Coast, because I know you represent the largest number. West Coast? All right.
Hi.
Hello.
Can't put my picture up. Sorry, I don't know what's wrong with my camera this morning, but
okay.
Hello, everyone.
Good morning, everybody.
Hi.
Good morning, everybody.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
If you're able
Good morning.
Whoa.
Good morning.
So for identity purposes, I grew up in Peru, but
Okay.
I am in Western, the West
All
Coast.
right, so we'll count Peru as well.
Yay.
Okay, Mountain Time. Who's on Mountain Time? Say hello.
Actually, that's me. Sorry, I'm going twice. I'm
That's
actually
okay.
in Utah.
Hey, hi, Julie.
Hello.
Everybody.
Hi, Catherine. Welcome. Okay, let's see. Mountain Central Time. Who's on Central Time?
Hello, Dallas, Texas. From
Hi, Sherry. Okay, Wendy, you're also on Mountain Time?
Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Okay. Good afternoon? No, not yet. Good morning still. East Coast. Who's on the East Coast? Wow. Okay. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Got Melissa,
Good afternoon from the
Jerry,
East Coast.
Maggie, Nicholas, Colleen. Frank hasn't turned off his video. Okay, Frank has his foot set in all the different places. Welcome. We're so excited to see everyone. I don't think we have anyone from Hawaii or from the Alaska time zone. So welcome again to everyone who's here. We are super excited to kick off this conference, and I'm going to hand it back to Damian.
Okay. So
feel free to turn your cameras back on.
Yeah, you can come back. I am going to tell you a trick that I think by now everybody knows Zoom, and you know that maybe you want to just listen to the person who is talking, particularly for the lectures. So in the top view, you press view, and that's new. You can choose between gallery or speaker. Before it was confusing. You never know which one you need to press, but now they are smart and they change it. So you press view and then you choose which view do you want, the speaker or the gallery. So if you want to just look at the speaker, I highly recommend that you just press a speaker. So in that way, you see only the person talking. So what we like to start is many people here have participated in some of my coaching and supervision programs. And I would like to start by the centering exercise. So for people who have never done this before, it may be strange, but the goal with centering is just to bring our attention and to bring our presence to the here and now. So to do that, I'm going to invite everyone. If you want, you can keep your camera on or off. You can turn the camera off for centering. Sometimes people like to do that. I want to ask you for a minute, it's going to be very short, to close your eyes. And I'm going to invite you to pay attention to your body and how are you today. So for a minute, it's an invitation, just close your eyes and pay attention to your breathing, inhaling and exhaling without forcing it. Just pay attention to how is your breathing right now. We're going to inhale and inhale. And then we're going to do a body scan to see how our body is today, from the top of the head to the feet. We're going to imagine that we have a scanner going down and going through our body and checking if they have any places where there is tension or pain, just to identify what it is, and we're going to keep going down. And then when we get to the feet, we're going to come up. Just checking our body and how our body is today. Then I'm going to ask you to pay attention to your emotions. How are you getting here today in terms of your emotions, your feelings? Are you getting here? Are you excited? Are you tired? Are you joyful? Are you sad? Are you worried? Are you angry? What emotions are you bringing here today with you? to today's conference. And the last question I'm going to ask you is, what is in your mind? What are your thoughts? What is in your mind right now that you want to maybe put apart on the side so you can be present to this event, to this conference for the next 2 days? What are your worries or things you need to do today later, or something that happened before today or in the week? It's in your mind. What do you need to let go to be completely present here for the next 2 days? And when you're ready, I want to invite you to focus on your breathing one more time and open your eyes and join us here. And I'm going to be sharing with you briefly what is the agenda for the day. Elaine, can you see well? Can you see the screen well? Okay. So as Kristine was saying, ICF Los Angeles, USC Prize Executive Master in Leadership Program, and my company are the sponsors of this program. So we are happy to have people from representing 10 countries. And the question that we are going to answer in the next 2 days is, who is the world calling us to be? As coaches, as leaders, as parents, as friends, as citizens of the world. So this is what we're going to be, this is the question that we want to invite you to consider for the next 2 days. So what is the agenda? When we planned this, we thought we're going to have an activity in the morning, very interactive, looking about how we prepare for the future, how we need to realign our coaching or our work to be prepared to the future now. So what are the decisions we need to make? What are the things that we need to be thinking? Are we having any blind spots? Are things that we are not paying attention that we need to be paying attention as coaches, as leaders? In the afternoon, we'll have a break for lunch from 11 to 12. This is Pacific Standard Time based. Maybe it's different everywhere in the world, but that will be our break for lunch. And then in the afternoon, we'll have 2 sessions, one with Kimberly Freeman, who is also a graduate from USC coaching program, and she has a very important position at USC in the diversity and inclusion area, and she's going to be sharing with us what are the things we need to pay attention related to diversity and inclusion as coaches and how to have conversations with our clients. And then Lily Ciro, who is a very experienced coach and supervisor and work very closely with me. We develop an American Coaches Supervisor Network with the supervisors from the Americas, but also people from all over the world are joining us. She's going to be talking about the COVID-19 and how do we deal with resilience and emotions. And I think that this is a task that we need to do on an ongoing basis. It doesn't matter how many conversations we have, we need to keep having them. And tomorrow, Saturday in the morning, we are going to have Jason Sackett, who is also a USC graduate from the coaching and supervision programs. He's going to be talking about conflict and managing conflict and having conversations about how to manage and navigate conflict. And after the second part of the morning, we're going to have a session from Carol Geffner. We're going to be talking about coaching leaders and leadership for the future. What are the things we need to pay attention to? And then we'll have the longer break there. It's a little bit different, the schedule today and tomorrow. So pay attention that lunch is later. And then we will have in the afternoon an opportunity to work in small groups, to experience group supervision. And so we're going to have an opportunity to think, and we're going to ask people to come prepared to bring a case or a situation in coaching that you would like to have some work done in small groups. So the participants from the conference are going to be facilitating group supervisions, discussions and reflections, so people can get some thinking and value from thinking together and reflecting together with colleagues here in the conference. Now, we ask all of the presenters to be very interactive, to have breakout rooms, So what I want to invite everyone here for the next 2 days is to pay attention what you can learn, what you can use in your work, what you can use in your life, how you want to show up in your life with all of these challenges, and also to build a community, to meet new colleagues and build relationships. And our goal with Elaine and with Kristine is to keep, after the conference is over, to find opportunities to keep getting together and keep being part of a learning community. So we're going to be talking about that later. And with that in mind, I leave Elaine and Kristine to do a summary of what happened last Monday.
So I welcome you to the first session, Realigning Coaching for the Future. And basically what Elaine and I are going to, and Damian are going to go over is the key points of Eve Turner's session on Monday. And also chapter 2, what are the challenges that we're facing in our world today, and how do we address it as coaches?
And so, obviously for those of us who are coaches, we understand, the value of coaching. We've seen the impact it has on individuals. We've seen the increase of self-awareness, as well as the introduction of internal coaching programs at different organizations, and coaching for managers, giving them that tool to use with their direct reports, and also coach supervision, right? Helping us be more impactful coaches. And it's been a journey, right? It's been, I think, maybe 40 years that we've been doing this, but what else can we do, right?
So in systemic coaching, Peter Hawkins brings up the point where we've made all this progress in coaching. I come at the end part of it. But there's been so much progress in the past multiple decades. But the question came to him after the 2008 and 2009 crash of the banks: where were the coaches? These banks had executive coaches who were coaching the leaders, and how did this happen? So the question comes back to the ethics and impact of coaching, of the coaching profession on the world. And in Eve Turner's session, she talked about how we do have an agenda. We have an agenda to serve humanity, and we don't serve it as coaches. We don't serve it just by viewing on the coachee, but we serve humanity by looking at the systems that the coach serves.
Okay, so so some of the key concepts that Eve brought up was the idea of the stacking doll, right? So it's not, while we are coaching the individual is related, interrelated and connected to all these other systems. There's their team, their family, their community, the environment, and the world. So it's not enough to just ask, what is it that you want to get out of coaching, right? We need to broaden our perspective and reframe the question that's being asked to consider how coaching the individual could also have an impact in all of the systems that this person is connected to. So, for example, maybe better questions would be, who and what does your work life serve? Or what matters to you in your family? Or what would your family, your organization say is the work that needs to be done through coaching?
The other concept that you've presented, and I've heard elsewhere too, but the idea of the empty chair, you said that in her office, she has the empty chair as a symbol of who's not being considered in this conversation. And so to bring broadening the perspective beyond the person who's in the room or on screen with you, and who's being impacted by these actions and decisions. The other thing that she brought up that relates to this is the concept of the 13th fairy. I think there's a book that she read that is called that, but I think of Maleficent. She wasn't invited to the baptismal party of the young princess, and then she comes back to haunt the family by putting Sleeping Beauty under her spell for so many years. So the idea is, again, who are we not considering who's not in here and who could come back to wreak havoc. Again, perspective beyond the individual and the immediate surroundings, but considering the system. And the other thing that really is relevant right now and always has been, but considering the future generations, down the line, will others look back and say, why did this happen? What could have been done? And as coaches, we have a privileged position of being able to enact change, to encourage people to do something that's beyond themselves and for the good of humanity.
So before we move into small group discussion, for those of you who were with us with Eve, there were a couple of images that she presented to help us understand the impact that we can have with our clients beyond just them. And it's this power of the system, right? And so she talked about how it starts with the whisper in that impact, right? Becomes voices. And then the other one was the idea of a drop of water leads to a waterfall. So I love that idea. The small, persistent intentions followed by actions can really lead to something that's greater than ourselves. And so with that, we'd love to move into small group discussion. And here are some of the questions that we would like you to discuss in your breakouts. What were your key learnings from Eve Turner's session, if you participated? What learning has taken place from Monday to today? And what is the most important work that your stakeholders need you to be doing today? So we will break out into groups of 4 for 15 minutes. And then we'll come back and ask you to contribute your ideas. And I will add these questions to the chat in case you forget. So look for that, those questions in the chat room.
Yeah, so if you were not here last Monday, don't worry. Some of you were not here and had a chance to look at the recording. If that didn't happen, just answer the last question. So focus on your last question. What your stakeholders need you to be doing here in the next 2 days. And with that in mind, I want to wait for Elaine for you to copy and paste the questions in the chat room so everybody has that handy when I send them to small groups. And when you are in your small group of 4, introduce yourself, but don't spend all the time introducing yourself because we can't spend the 15 minutes talking about each other, so that will not work. So we have 15 minutes. So in this 15 minutes, don't use more than 1 minute or 2 to talk 30 seconds each about yourself. And after you introduce briefly to each other, then answer the question. You choose what question do you want to answer based on if you were here or not. So Elaine, are you?
Yes, I'm almost done.
Okay, great with that. So we can be ready, and we have 15 minutes. And as soon as we do that, I will okay, the questions are in the chat room, so you can go there and look at them when you're in your small groups. So enjoy these 15 minutes. So let's hear from a few people. What was your conversation, your discussion? What are your reflections? What is in your mind? Who would like to share what happened in your small groups discussions? Who would like to start? I don't get to see everybody because now we are almost 50 people in the call. So I see only half of the people. So you may just open the microphone and start talking.
I guess I'll start. This is Jerry. I was in a group of 4, and probably 3 key points. I mean, we talked a lot about a lot of different things, but I think the 3 key points that came up were kind of looking at not only what the world needs for you, is expecting from you, but what also do you need from the world, especially in the type of COVID. So it's really kind of a double-ended system to really see what, and maybe what positive perspectives are looking on that as well, rather than just the negative. So that was one area. And then also looking at, especially with leaders who may have the luxury of having a nanny or a partner that can take care of their children, as opposed to like a single parent who's dealing with children and family. How does that scheduling, and how do you really look at those 2 systems and being able to identify what might work for one doesn't work for another? The example, the best time for single mothers is when the child is sleeping, which might not be in the next hour, but might be 6 hours from now. So to be able to readjust those deadlines and systemic ideas. And then the third is how to recreate, especially in a virtual world, that sort of coffee machine or water cooler environment. Now that the teams are sort of separated by little squares, a lot of that interaction is not happening that used to happen sort of naturally within the workplace in real life. And how do you kind of bridge that and build that back together within teams and systems? So those are kind of 3 key points that we came up with.
Great. Thank you, Jerry. And adding to this, what you are talking about, situations of having flexibility and working from home, also the issue of fatigue. So at the beginning was how we adapted to COVID-19 and what did it mean for different people working from home. And I think we are getting used to part of the environment and part of the work, including family members, kids, pets, interruptions. But after the adaptation and the flexibility to work in the situation, after a few months, we are all in some way, to some extent, this is working, but for some people it's not working. So for people who have children at home, they are not going back to school, people are going to experience fatigue. Fatigue, okay, this is being difficult, this is challenging, and we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel because we don't know when this is going to end. So this brings a lot of stress, attention to us as coaches and also our clients. And for supervisors here in the program, you work with your own issues, plus the issues that the coaches bring to supervision, plus the issue of the clients. So it's a lot to hold a space for. And that's the reason why we need to take care of ourselves, as you were saying, Jerry, also. What our stakeholders need from us and what we need for ourselves so we can do the work that we need to do. Great, thank you for sharing. Who else would like to share?
Hi, this is Sylvia.
Yes, Sylvia.
Hi. So in my group, we talked about a couple things, just kind of catching up on what was talked about on Monday. One concept that we were kind of struggling or discussing was the way we are supposed to present, pose a question, what is the world, what do you need to do for the world, or, like thinking more globally, right? But however, like what is the ethical ramification when we're saying if the client doesn't really care about the world or care about anything else but their bottom line, or, so how do we resolve that conflict, or how do we approach that? So I'm personally interested in learning more about that.
Yeah, that's a really great question. It also came up in the group that I was part of. And what we are talking, one way to look at this is in terms of values. And what are the values? And many times organizations have values that everybody can read everywhere, but there is a big difference between what is written and what people are doing. So what happens when you work in organizations as a leader or as a coach, where the values that are in paper are not necessarily the ones that come up in everyday interactions? And what is your role as a coach to bring this to conversation? So Sylvia, one of the possibilities to look at that is how you challenge your clients to see to what extent there is alignment or not between the values of the organization and what the organization is doing and the leader as part of the organization. But there are many different levels, because then what happens with the values of the coach? what happens if the coach is not aligned with the values of the client? So this is another conversation, and this is where we have ethical issues. And I believe that after training, after working as a coach for many years and training coaches and supervisors for many years, my experience is that many times coaches in general have a problem in firing clients or saying no to working with clients. It's like there is an idea or belief that we need to work with everybody and anybody. And if we don't want to work with a client, there is something wrong with us. So that's the reason why supervision can be a great place to explore these issues of values. What happens when is an issue that is really, okay, I need to work on myself. There is an issue with me as a coach or as a leader that I need to pay attention to and I need to work on to be more effective in my job. Or is an issue, okay, there are different values and this partnership is not working because values are different. So that's the reason why some coaches may choose not to work with some companies that they are not aligned with their values. Can be different. I remember once I was invited to work for a company that worked with arms, and I didn't feel comfortable accepting that invitation to work in that company. I didn't feel that my values were aligned to that company. So it's also, there is an opportunity for us as coaches to reflect on that. But what is important is to have a question. For everyone here, is just being aware of that question and bring it to conversation with colleagues and in supervision. So thank you for bringing this up because it's an important question about values. Because this is what we are going to be working on the next 2 days is what are our values? Are we aligned as coaches? Are we aligned to our values? What are we doing to make this world a better place? And how are we engaged or not in some of the conversations? So that was thank you, Silvia, for bringing this up. One more person before we go to our break of the middle of the session. Who would like also to share some ideas of your conversations?
I'm happy to share from USC. Yeah. The question was what stakeholders need us to be doing in the next few days. And it's not days for us, it's probably weeks and months. But what we talked about was we tend to be pushed, and this I'm quoting somebody else, so if I'm saying it wrong, I apologize, but we tend to be pushed into more of an OD market. And I'm not necessarily, I think it's hard right now to find where to put us, but it's also hard for them to understand the value that we bring, that they have within the university. And one of my other colleagues is here, very, very skilled, and I'm looking at you, Angela, very skilled coaches. And the people that work with us see us as very skilled coaches, but I'm not sure that as it goes up the ladder that it's being seen. And so I'm not sure they know quite what to do with us and how to use us. And then for me, that feels a little risky right now. Do we fit in the organization that we're in, the group that we're in? Should we be someplace else like an OD and talent management? There are leadership academies. Angela and I have been very active in those. So it's like a fit, but yet an acknowledgement that they don't have to go outside and hire, coaches. We're right there. We are right there, and we're right there because you've trained us.
Now, what is a good question, Linda, here is that the companies that may hire us as executive coaches, how interested they are in answering these questions. And see that maybe the company that hired us, they may not be as interested in the well-being of the world. They may just be interested in the executive or the leader to be more effective in his or her job. So the invitation here is to consider how do we bring this question to the organizations too. Exactly. But as you're saying, I agree with you, many companies may or may not appreciate or value this bigger, we can call it agenda, of looking at the world and sustainability and what is the role of the coach, not only in the effectiveness of the person in front of us, but their teams, their organization, society, and the world at all of the different levels.
Yes.
So that is a great question. It's a great question too.
Can I just,
Angela, if I misstated in any way, please follow on.
Okay, we need to wrap up here. I know there is more to talk, but this is just a warming up. We're warming up for the work we're going to be doing. And we may not have a lot of answers here, but we want to ask you a lot of questions. So we prepare not to have a solution and answer, but we're going to be coach-like in the next 2 days. And we are going to be posing you a lot of questions to think. And some answers we may need to answer over time. But we want to pose these questions. I don't know, Elaine, Kristine, anything you want to say before we go to our break? Anything you want to add?
Well, I had so much to add about that USC question, but I'll leave it for another time. But USC Coaching Mastermind to figure out how to connect all the different coaching systems would be lovely. But no, I enjoy the conversations. We've been addressing it on the local university level, on the state level, and on the global level with our group.
Yes, and Kristine, I've been trying so hard to get a connection, but we've had so much dysfunction that I haven't even been able to get back to Kristine to say, how can we do this? And she would be so valuable to work with. So we've got it. We just don't know how to bring it together.
And I think a few of you, and because here half of the participants are from USC, I think that you have a lot to maybe explore during coaching supervision tomorrow. I think that can be a great place to bring some of these issues and explore some of these issues. Because there is a lot to be done at USC, and the good news is that there are a lot of people here who can make a difference. So
absolutely. Good to see you, Kristine.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Elaine, anything you want to say?
No, I am excited. I think some good things are going to come out of this for USC after this conference.
God help them.
So what we're going to do when we come back from the 5-minute break, we're going to be talking about chapter 2 and 3 of the book. So if you didn't have a chance to get the book, we got the discount for the participants of the conference. So be sure that if you get it, you get the discount. If you have not had the chance to get the book yet, you can get it later. I am starting using this book in all of my trainings, coaching and coaching supervision, because I do believe that the next level, after you build the skills, this is the way of thinking. It's not about the doing, but it's about how you're thinking about the work we are doing. So this is important work. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the 7A model that many supervisors know, but apply to coaching. How we work in coaching with the 7A model. And then Kristine and Elaine are going to be talking about chapter 2, all of the new trends that we need to be paying attention as coaches, and how we need to evolve, and how to let go of some of the things we're doing, and what are the new techniques, new ways of thinking, mindset that we need to embrace to be prepared for the future. So let's be back in 5 minutes to keep working together. Everybody's mute. And I want to share for a few minutes the 7I model, but apply to coaching. I think half of the participants here are coaching supervisors, have received training as coaching supervisors. For coaches who are not familiar with supervision, basically it's a reflective space where we work on our work. We think together with a colleague about what the work we are doing, what is working well. We leverage our strength. We look at ethical dilemmas. We say that supervision has 3 functions: supportive, formative, and normative. The supportive is getting a lot of emotional support in challenging times. Normative is about looking at ethical issues, and developmental or formative is about keep learning new skills, new techniques, new theories, new models that enrich our work. So we use this model in supervision, and we want to start using this also in coaching. So I'm going to start training, and this is new training, not only supervisors, but also coaches on how to use this model and how to apply this 7A model when you work with your clients. So for people who are familiar with the model, I want to invite you to consider this from a different perspective, a different angle. How would you use this with your clients in coaching, not only supervision? So it's a little bit different. The idea is that we are going to be looking at 3 systems when we're working with our client. One is the system of the client and the stakeholders of the client. So the idea is that the client or coachee has challenges, have stakeholders, have a life, a world. So I number 1 or mode number 1 is about who is the client and the client world and challenges. So basically, when we are working as coaches, we ask questions about understanding in the coaching agreement that will be related to the coaching agreement. really the coach wants to work on the session. And the second mode, or mode 2, is about the client's choices and behaviors, what they have been doing in the past, what they're doing in the present. Is basically what the coach is doing. So basically, when we're talking about the coachee or the client, first, number 1 is asking questions to understand the world of the client and the challenge, what they want to work on. Number 2 is behavior. What have been the coach's choices and behavior? What they have been doing related to what they want to work on. So these are the questions to understand their behaviors. And mode number 3 is about understanding the relationships. So people who are familiar with this model and in supervision, we spend a lot of time in relationships. We really we are curious about what are the relationships between the client and the stakeholders, between the client and the coach, between the coach and the supervisor. Here in coaching will be, what are the relationships that this coach is building with all of his or her stakeholders? So spending time reflecting and asking questions about the interactions and the relationships between the client and people around them. Number 4 is the coach's, the client or coach's emotions, beliefs. This is the who. People who are familiar with the ICF framework is when we ask questions about the who, are questions about how the client is relating to the issue, feeling, what are their beliefs, what are their emotions, what's happening to them related to the issue that they are bringing. So mode number 4 or number 4 would be the client, the coachee, and his or her emotions, beliefs. And number 5 is just we're entering in a different system. We are entering the system between the client and the coach. So the first system is the world of the coach. The second system is the world between the coach and the coachee, between the coach and the client. And in this world, what we want to pay attention to first is who is the coachee, who is the client, what is the relationship, number 5, between the coach and the client, and number 6 will be the coach, and what's happening to the coach during the coaching session. Now, most coaches have been trained to forget ourselves when we are working with our client. It's all about the client. It's all about the client's agenda. It's all about the client, and we want to be very careful not to bring ourselves to the work. And I think that we have gone to an extreme where we are not using information that we are collecting in these conversations that can be useful for the client. And I mean information that's coming up in our body, information that is coming up in our emotions, thoughts, intuitions, beliefs that we may have that we are not sharing because we think there is not place for that. Now, I do believe there is a place for that if it is done effectively. If it is done to provoke something in the client, to make the client think, and to make the client get insight or new awareness of issues. So people who are familiar with this model, the idea is to move one step down and everything that's coming up from a supervisor perspective, moving it now to the coach. So there is a place for the coach to talk about their experiences in the here and now and how that can be of value for the coachee. For example, if in the here and now, I am experiencing that the client is speaking without stopping, and it seems that he's not listening to what I have to say as a coach, I may bring this to conversation and I may say something such as, I have an observation. I hear you speaking. You have not stopped. I'm wondering if you are curious what I have to say, or if I am following you. What do you think? Because we always want to follow up a statement of an observation with a question and to grasp the reaction from the client, because this is what we're doing. We're interested in provoking something for the client. And 7 is the wider context and systems. Is what's happening, asking questions about, like I usually start my sessions asking my client, how are you doing? How is COVID-19 affecting you? In the United States, we're going through the elections. So there is a lot of emotionality, a lot of reactions, a lot of anger, a lot of fear about different situations. So how are you experiencing that? How is it affecting you? So it's an important question that we may ask in bringing I number 7 or the context, social, political, economical issues that may be affecting our clients. So I'm going to do a brief exercise with everyone here. And then Elaine and Kristine are going to be talking about some of the key trends from the chapter 2 from the book. Briefly, I want you to consider a client that you're working with. And if you're not a coach, if you're a leader, I want you think of somebody that's working for you, with you, or for you. A direct report. And if you don't have any direct report, somebody you're working with. Just to think about when we are working with them, how we can have a more systemic approach. So we're talking about systemic thinking, but also systemic being, not only systemic thinking. And this is what I like about this book, is it talks about systemic thinking, but about systemic perceiving. It's like paying attention, how we pay attention to what's happening in the world, and also systemic being, who we are being, and if we are thinking in the whole system, or if we're just thinking in ourselves. So with that in mind, I want you to consider a client, as a, now everybody as a coach here, I know many of you are supervisors. As a coach, think of a client you're working with, and what is the coaching agreement, what the client is bringing to work. What is the issue, the challenge, the thing that they want to work on? That will be more number 1. So think of a client, or if you're not a coach, as a leader, think one issue that the person working with you may be interested in exploring with you, or maybe an issue that they are bringing to you to problem solving or help them with the issue. And mode number 2 would be what the person has already done about it, or is doing right now about this issue. So think about your client and think what they are doing, what having their choices around this issue so far. And then number 3 will be the interactions. How is this client relating to the stakeholders? And who are the stakeholders? And is there a possibility that there is a stakeholder that the client is missing? Now, sometimes it's challenging for clients to bring, in terms of their agenda, to bring issues if they don't know that they don't know. So they have blind spots and they don't know that they don't know, they are not aware even that there are maybe stakeholders that they're not paying attention. It's going to be challenging for them to go there without some prompting from the coach asking who else may be in a stakeholder that you're not paying attention to. So mode number 4 would be if we go to the client beliefs and emotions, to the who of the client. We know in coaching, we may not ask directly to the client who you are being, or who do you want to be as a leader, or who do you want to be as a parent, or who do you want to be in the situation, but we may ask, how are you doing what you are doing? It's another way to go to how the person is relating to the issue. What are their beliefs, their emotions around the issue that they are bringing? I'm going a little bit fast because we need to move on, but I want you to consider all of this from a different perspective. And number 5 is the relationship, how your relationship as a coach working with your client. How is that dynamic? So we want to pay attention to what's happening between us, and how whatever is happening between us in the here and now can be also a pattern and a repetition of what happened to the client in other places. And maybe the same way that they're showing up with us during the coaching session is the same way that they show up as leaders, the same way that they show up as collaborators, as team members. So we may explore that, and as a result of that, the client may get new insights about how they're showing up that they may not be aware of. And number 6 will be self-reflections, what's happening to the coach in the session. So we'll be thinking and sharing with your client what is in your body, what is in your mind, what is in emotion that may come up as a result of what's happening, with the goal to provoke something in the client and ask the client, what do you think about that? What is your reaction about that? To see if they can get some learning from that experience. And finally, number 7 is if there is anything in the wider context that is affecting socially, politically, economically, and the world that we're living today. There are many things that are clearer today, I think, that maybe a couple of years ago when we were thinking systemically. There is so much going on that are together. Here, even in Los Angeles, they're having fires. So what, the natural conditions that can also be affecting. So I want you to think about this, and I want to move on to Elaine and Kristine to talk about some of the things that are affecting us as coaches working with our clients, and then we're going to go to small group discussions. Elaine, Kristine?
So Elaine and I are going to be summarizing, basically, we're starting with a summary of Peter Hawkins and Eve Turner's chapter 2 in systemic coaching. And so they had a research, they sent out questions to find out what were the 3 to 5 biggest challenges facing the organization. So this was before COVID rolled out and that. So it was before, the findings are from before then. So some of the systemic challenges that came back in their research was the unceasing and accelerating transformation, the technological and digital revolution, the disintermediation and Uberization, the hollowing out of the organization and growing complexity of the stakeholder world, the globalization, climate change, the need to learn and adapt faster. And we added social injustice. And if you're in the US, I would add the political issues. But Elaine is going to focus in on globalization.
Yeah, so I chose globalization because I consider myself a international educator, and I've been paying attention to this for a long time. In my full-time job, I would travel with MBA students overseas to see the challenges that companies faced and leaders faced in trying to expand globally or deal with international teams in different time zones. And so this is something that came up in this research, which of course I wasn't surprised to see. What does it take to lead across countries and cultures? And there's the different business practices as well as time zones. There are leaders. Great leaders will be able to relate effectively across all of these challenges. And I'm sure you've had some of your clients who are dealing with these issues. So the research that they conducted showed that 76% of the respondents felt that it was an important issue to tackle, but only 7% found that they were currently doing it effectively. So this is from a research study from 2012. So, something to think about is a local cinema, right? They actually have to think about Netflix and Amazon and how that might impact, their business. You have to really think broadly to be successful. And, we may be working with clients that are based in a different country. They might be based in the US and are from, you might be in the US and your client is in the US, but they're originally from another country. I recently started coaching a client from Austria, and there were some issues just with one session, right? The challenge of being able to communicate with him. He had a heavy accent and our video wasn't working. And so that was a layer of challenge. But as he was talking about his management style, I started to wonder, what part of this, is it just him or is it the influence of where he grew up? So this is a very interesting issue. And then the other issue that I wanted to highlight was, or the challenge is the need to learn and adapt faster. And boy, with COVID, a lot of our clients, a lot of our family have had to deal with learning new platforms and new technologies to continue to do our work, to continue to learn, right? Some people had to learn Zoom for the first time. I learned Slack for the first time, and Microsoft Teams. There's all these different technologies. So when we think about our clients and how quickly things are changing, especially for those in leadership roles, do they have time to reflect, right? And do they have time to see patterns and time to strategize? And how do they keep up? And research shows that leaders didn't feel like they have enough time to support, to have the space to learn, right? So this comes from Tomorrow's Leadership and the Necessary Revolution in Today's Leadership Development. So this is from 2016, 2017. Are we challenging our clients to find the time and space to keep reinventing themselves because things are moving so fast? And to see beyond the current challenges and to think about the future, and to deliver value beyond the future. And we know that a lot of organizations have now changed their business practices because they could not have imagined living with COVID and having to do things remotely. So how do we work with our clients to really think about the future and what might happen?
And so I have climate change, and as we go down this list, it's like I can feel my anxiety rising as we're like, how do you deal with all this? But the climate change in in the western region of the United States, we've been dealing with the fires, and personally we haven't gone out because of the air quality, but there are people who are dealing with the ravages of the fires. Last year, Australia was on fire, the hurricanes, the melting polar ice caps. And then on top of that, we also have social injustice that has become so much more present in everybody's life as COVID has rolled through. And we see the disparities of race, of health, of income, and education in society. And as we were going through these challenges, it's like, okay, we do have to think broadly, but there's a part where it's like, okay, but let's bring it back to the person. And this is where I really like the diagram that was developed by Peter Hawkins and I have to look up her name, Judy
Wright.
Thank you. But as just a personal anecdote for one moment, as we personally delved into the issue of systemic racism, I joined a group with my various people from around the country who've had different, who grew up in different ways and racially, socioeconomically. And what was interesting as we had the conversation, it really did follow this model that has been presented by Peter Hawkins as being useful to self-reflect for the coach and the coachee. It was adapted from a psychotherapy model. But first the denial, and with the systemic racism, that was a first, a lot of people are like, I'm not part of that. And then when we started acknowledging it as a group together, the grief and the pain, the anger and blame, the guilt and shame, as we saw how we were contributing to that systemic racism, and again, trying to deny it, but then coming to a point where it's like, okay, let's own this, let's take the responsibility. And then the next level is take the responsibility to act and then become part of the movement. And it truly has become part of this group conversation that has been expanded to another group where I'm more open to saying, well, let me hear more about that. So it's like in community and coaching, I think this is a marvelous diagram that's on page 123 and 124 of systemic coaching. I hope you'll check it out.
So one of the participants was wondering about number 3 and number 4, which is the disintermediation and Uberization. I mean, who could have imagined that Uber would totally disrupt the taxi system, right? And so that's what that's talking about. Or, for example, Airbnb. And how that has impacted the hotel business, right? So those are some of the challenges that leaders are facing. That there are people, innovators that are coming up and totally disrupting businesses. And so how do you keep that top of mind? So that's what number 3 is about.
And also, if you consider blockchain technology, the contract no longer needs an intermediary contract. it's between two entities. So the laws haven't even been written for that. So.
Yeah. Thank you, Jerry, for contributing. Thanks. So here we are. We are going to break out into small groups. So, reflecting on these challenges that we brought up today, which you can read about in chapter 2 of the book, how do you need to realign your coaching for the future? Ignore the first your. How do you need to realign your coaching for the future? There's so many challenges, and then we presented new ones. So we are excited to go back into breakout and then hear from you when we return. So again, we will do 15 minutes and we'll break up into 4, and looking forward to your contributions.
And again, for people who are not coaches, it's how you realign your practice, your leadership, whatever you're doing in your job. What do you need to do different to prepare and be effective, embracing the future now? That's the question. And do you want to put the question in the chat room?
Yes.
And maybe you want to choose one person from the group to present later, so you already have somebody who knows we're going to be sharing some of your reflections. Have fun. So, Christina, you going to a group?
This point, sitting there and doing nothing.
So right. I want to ask for permission to everybody to record this session. Is that okay with everyone? So they can share with people who are not here. Okay. I'm going to be joining you.
Okay.
And so, Paul, what do you do at USC?
I'm the director of our executive education programs for the Price School. And coaching is an integral part of our work. So the main question that they posed at us, I don't necessarily know that this could change our business model in the short term. We've linked coaching as part of our executive education trainings for years now. And you would all recognize that as spot coaching, where they're short-term engagements, not 6 months or a year, they're shorter in duration. And at least in the immediate future, that's not going to change based on our program design. Part of the intent is to expose participants to what executive coaching is, so they can see it as a tool for their own professional development, and do it in this training space. That's multi-month duration is a program, and then we have executive coaching built into it. How about you, Lynn?
Well, I have an executive coaching practice here in Whistler, but it's mostly virtual these days. And I'm working with a real range of clients. I'm doing some work with Lily, who's going to be presenting this afternoon in the Indigenous space, which has been a huge learning for me, just understanding that system. But more typically, my clients are executives some in high tech, some are, Crown Corps that are dealing with a really complex range of stakeholders. So yeah, that's kind of my territory.
Cool.
What you
Mine's on the public space and the executive, with executives within public service. And while we might be shifting to online as far as doing it over the phone or over like a Zoom platform, for example, the heart of the coaching experience isn't really changing dramatically. Sylvia, how about you?
Hi, good morning. I'm in LA. I am the director of the organizational development and training within the LA County Public Health department. So as you can imagine, we're extremely busy with pandemic response, and we're just in a emergency mode to respond, and it's been like that since January, definitely since March and on. Yeah, I think, and then we just finished graduating about 19 coaches from Damian's training group, including myself. And we are, right now, we actually tailored our coaching to more wellness kind of opportunity, because we have learned that people are just being exhausted. They're just we've been working 24/7 around the clock, and people are just tired, and we wanted to really highlight the importance of wellness. And the original intent of coaching was really to embark on organizational change. But that's been kind of on the back burner. I mean, it's still a high priority, of course, but we needed to really pay attention to the immediate need, which was really looking at the workforce and how they're impacted and how we can support that workforce's needs. So yeah, we've been offering like 30-minute express coaching. So I have a manager who's handling that. So we're just kind of molding and adapting to what the needs are. But as a whole, as a department, I think as a in a county, that's a whole nother culture. I don't know if you are familiar with government structure, but we're a lot of times from technology to processing, we're more likely than not very antiquated. So I think looking at other sectors in the community and how advanced they are, and just catching up with time, that's a whole nother challenge in itself. And then also looking at coaching as a professional development piece and strategy, it's really been dedicated for leaders and executives, right? And I think it needs to be really be broadened to be offered to all levels of staff, so that we can really individually impact on at a level. I think that really fits nicely with the systemic coaching concept, and within the organization and beyond.
Paul, I did share my work environment, but I didn't talk about my coaching. So I just kind of just to round that out a little bit. I was a member of a cohort at USC a year or so ago, and I have not been active in terms of any clients, but I took it because I wanted to develop it, and kind of what Sylvia was talking about, it just professional development. Interesting. I did, and the reason I signed up for this conference is because I wanted to revisit the competencies and just ingrain it into myself. I did volunteer for a mentor program at USC last year, which I found interesting, and it was put together prior to the pandemic. And what I find interesting is that it's pretty much abandoned. You talk about how coaching bridges, you could coach your practices from before the pandemic and then try to make adjustments. This program didn't make it. And as I'm listening to everybody speak, those are questions I'm kind of asking myself, why didn't it? Why couldn't the program adjust? Since most of it was remote anyway, why didn't it succeed? So just thoughts in the back of my head as I'm listening to everybody speak.
I'm curious, why do you think it didn't make it, Frank? What's your theory?
Well, how many of you are at USC? Just two of us, right? Yeah. It had leadership. and it had organization. They had a kickoff. It was constant. I think what happened was there was no adjustment in the communications. They pretty much just expected us to roll out with the calendar. And as you know, everybody's life changed. For me, working on the digital platforms and bringing technology, expanding, the workplace from a controlled environment out to somebody's house where I have zero control is really a lot of change. But I think the program just did not focus on change and just kind of expected it to march on, and it died on the vine. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be dynamic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's certain realities that need to be addressed. And I don't think either of those happened, for what it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
Frank, I'm not familiar with that program, but USC has had so many major shifts happen, major priorities that changed over the last couple of years. In some ways, it's not surprising that the program fizzled out. We'll see.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think that's, not too uncommon for big organizations to just kind of lose the momentum and the will of continuing something. So for my department, of course, I was really afraid that coaching will be on the wayside. And so how do we really leverage what we need, what's going on in the current situation, and how do we leverage what we have, that the time and the resources that we have invested in, right? So, I think being creative, thinking outside the box is important. And, things are always changing, and this topic, I'm really excited about this because I even was talking about this with my husband, who's decided to have a huge change in career, and really looking in the future, how do we adapt, because things are changing so fast, right? And how do we train and really empower the workforce at large, to really survive and thrive in this changing world. So I'm really, in general, just really excited about this, and addressing our role as coaches in the world.
In terms of this question about realigning, doing things differently, anything else that came up for you? For anybody? Something different?
Damian, I think one of the biggest shifts for me is not necessarily in our approach to coaching, but how the participants have seen different modes as being really effective. So there's a long time where Sylvia, I worked with, or continue to work with LA County on the Executive Leadership Development Program for the last 8 years. And there was a real resistance of doing any coaching other than in-person coaching. And now, with the since March, the mind shift has really changed to saying, what, while in-person is great, and that's maybe something that we should strive for from a human connection side, we can also connect in a very dynamic and human way over the phone and in this type of medium with a video conference. And I think that major shift has helped my work become a little bit easier, in a sense of I don't have to try and convince them of things that we've known in the coaching space for a long time. In order to create presence doesn't require us to be face to face in the same room, right? We can become present in different ways. And in fact, I almost prefer coaching over the phone because I feel like I'm really honed into the tonal inflections in people's voices and just totally present in a different way than when I'm seeing them in person, because it takes a lot of distractions out for me by just really focusing in on their voice and how their voice is showing up in that moment and picking up different observations in the conversation. And I think from the, when you talk about the different side, I think a big hurdle that we don't have to overcome anymore in the same way is convincing clients that remote coaching is a viable option.
Thank you, Paul. I didn't know. You just reminded me about the USC, the executive coaching or the leadership program. So definitely, I'm not in the full loop in that, but I do hear about it, and I heard great things about it. And you're right. I mean, I think just being on Zoom and this virtual video platform is new to our department, at least, or county. So it's like, they don't even want to turn on the cameras, it's just kind of being shy about it, right? I mean, that's realigning just expectation and the new way of doing things, that's important. So that in itself, and coaching, and I've been doing coaching virtual and I love it because we don't have to travel anywhere. I love it myself. I'm open to changes and things, but some people are not. So I think to answer Damian's question, just realigning people's expectations and mindset, I think that's where we need to start, right? And then also put in the mechanism, incorporate the mechanism so that they can actually, carry out whatever we want them to carry out, technology-wise or whatever, right? And policies, and we even have a new standard of practice of what, like, okay, people stop working at 9 o'clock or don't send email at 9 o'clock. So creating that new expectation is huge. I mean, it's kind of silly to have that kind of new protocol, but that's just what's needed. It needs to be written down so people just like understand we have the same language, the same expectation, be on the same page. So yeah, things are interesting.
So this is about boundaries.
Exactly. Yeah.
Boundaries. That's another interesting topic. How we manage boundaries when we work from home.
Mm-hmm.
And what are the expectations? And then the difference between when the issue with the boundaries is from the organization and when the issue of the boundaries is from the client or the coach. Like sometimes in coaching, working with leaders, sometimes the organization may be over asking for extra work, but sometimes people, they do it themselves. They create their own.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You can relate to that.
Yep, absolutely. I tell my team members, this is a boundary, but they just go off and do what they want to do. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's not what I needed.
We're going to be pushed to the room. One volunteer, somebody who want to present? Okay, well, we were having a very interesting conversation. I hope that everybody has some rich conversations and connections. Who would like to share some of the ideas that you were discussing in your small groups?
I'll start.
Okay, Mauricio.
We were talking of the fact that how to not to get stuck in a rut. So the analogy that I brought up during the conversation was the fact that the shift of paradigm of the companies such as Kodak, such as Polaroid, or Timex, those people necessarily, they created wonderful pieces of technology at the time, but they got stuck and never went with the times. So ourselves as supervisors and coach, how we can deliver a time shift so that these coaches and clients don't get stuck in ourselves in the same manner. That's what we're talking about.
Thank you, Mauricio. That's a really good question. What do we need to do to take care of ourselves and our thinking and our paradigms? And personally, I want to share with you that I feel a little bit responsible for training coaches and mentor coaches and supervisors for many years, and now thinking that I feel that I should have been more systemic. So this is the reason why we're having this conference, and say, please, all of the graduates from the program, come join us, because we all need together to be thinking systemically more. Even the supervision program, because we have the 7 model, it was a systemic program, but for coaches in particular, I do believe that we all need to shift the way we are working and thinking and being. So thank you for bringing this up. Who wanna go next?
I'll go next. We were having such a rich conversation in my group, and it got to the point that I wanted more time, and I was in the middle of talking. So I miss you guys already. But we started a conversation around how, checking in on what's changed for them since COVID or since the challenges that they're having is more important than ever. So in terms of that context, that has really been helpful for level setting for the coach. We also talked about how reflective space is more important than ever because people aren't getting it as much as they used to, which brought us into a really interesting conversation around people we're coaching that are in emotional pain. and helping them through the pain that they're having and sort of the lack of transparency sometimes around that pain to the coach, and how we actually have to work harder to get them to be even more transparent because they've been holding it in so much. And so that's been fascinating to really ask someone, how are you really, really? Not just how are you, but how are you really, really? And then the other thing that Nancy brought up about Brene Brown, this whole comparing our suffering. Sometimes people say, well, I don't have it that bad because all these other people have it so much worse, but how that really isn't helpful at all. And then Maya, who Jan has done this amazing article you can see on her LinkedIn on loneliness. So if you haven't seen that, Maya, you could probably share with the group, but just talking about like deeply the people that are suffering through loneliness or other things, and really working on some deep cases, but making certain that you're getting them to open up and being transparent with you and creating that safe place is more important than ever. So
thank you for bringing this up, and the idea here is really that you're bringing up for everybody to consider is that because of everything's going on, people are having coping mechanisms, trying to keep forward, and sometimes not connecting emotionally. So sometimes you may find a disconnection between what's happening and our own emotions as a coping mechanism to be able to manage all of these tensions. And then this issue about having to look good and having to show that you are managing, when we know that deep inside, we know that we are all struggling. I do believe that by creating that safety, that space can be created. And I was telling some of my colleagues that this year, for people who have been trained as coaches, have been a very tough year. Because if you're a brand new coach and you're working with new clients, and clients are bringing challenging issues, whereas they just need to be listened to. Sometimes it's not about therapy, not necessarily that they are depressed and they need therapy, that's a possibility. But they may just need to be listening, and we need to hold the space. Now, for coaches who are just learning coaching and are following the International Coach Federation framework, very difficult to follow that framework when clients may need just to be listened to. So this is about shifting, also knowing when is the right time to use that framework and when it's not. So these are some of the things, and you may hear me saying that I wrote books about coaching competencies. And you have also maybe have heard lately for me saying the more that I know them and the more that I teach them, the least attached I am to them. So it's how we can use them at the right time and at the right place. And when we need to do something else, and how to create that really safe space where people can really open up and just maybe need to speak, and how we can be comfortable in holding that space for people to just speak. But yeah, I saw your hand. You want to share something? Pilar, go ahead.
Myself?
Yes.
No, no, sorry. I was just saying something to my sister that she bring my mother to take care of her. Sorry.
But you want to share anything with people here?
Well, yeah, why not? Well, what I was saying in our chat is about my own experience. Well, because the work of my husband, at the beginning, we went to live together with him in Germany. And then he left and he went to Indonesia. So yeah, for me, it was a deep experience, the contrast between in German culture and Indonesian culture. So I had to take coaching, but also therapy, because I was so confused, and I was the culture is really different in many ways. So I think I read there about the compassion. I think we need to receive our clients with compassion, because all we are living different situations, different. Sometimes we are not having good time, and it's important not to stop them, not to reject their beliefs and their feelings, but yeah, receive them and try and help them out and guide them to find a sense to the life they're living, and trying to invite them to find resources to live, to have a better life in that context, because for me was difficult at the beginning.
Thank you for sharing that, because I do believe that this is a great question for everyone here. Is how are we navigating self-compassion? So when I want to invite everybody to write down this question for you to think, how you're navigating, how you're dealing with self-compassion. Not only compassion for everybody else, probably that is easier to be compassionate with everything that's going on in the world with others. But what's happening with us? What's happening with our self-compassion? Because nobody here is perfect in managing all of these challenges that we are living today. And I do believe that what you're bringing, Pilar, this, and also related, I think Nancy mentioned that before, the work of Brené Brown, is how to take care of ourselves, and what do we need to take care of ourselves. And most of the time we're great about taking care of others, but this is a syndrome from caretakers. We are effective about taking care of others, but not about ourselves. And I do believe here, coaches, we need to develop strategies to really take care of ourselves, because we are the instrument that we use to work with our client. Julie.
Yeah, that's some of the stuff that we were talking about in our group as well, is that, how can we be there and create the space for our clients, whether they need to be listened to, whether they need to be challenged. If we're not centered and taking care of ourselves, and I was sharing with my group, my training prior to taking your training, Damian, was that you can only take your clients as far as you've sort of taken yourself in terms of that self-care and that centeredness.
Thank you. Thank you. Susan, we have time for a couple of people and then we need to wrap up.
It's interesting. I've drunk the Kool-Aid, and when I think about ICF, I always think, my job is helping my clients maximize their potential through, yada, yada. I can say it verbatim, but I realize at this time right now, it might not be maximizing. We talked a little about, we always want to help people thrive, but it might be tolerating, or it might be just surviving. And you're still going to aim toward maximizing, but it might take a longer time to get there. But you might have to work in these other areas now, because people are we talked about eroding trust and just other aspects that are part of what's going on in our world right now.
Thank you, Susan, for bringing this up.
What?
One last comment, somebody?
Can I?
Yeah.
Well, what we found is based on the question how to realign your coaching for the future, is that on one side, our conversation should not only to be asking questions, but contributing our own views, but in a way that we check in, that we ask for permission to share, and additionally, if we make an observation, close it with a question at the end, as you taught us, or as you said before, Damian. We thought it was a very, very good idea. And the other thing that is very much about today is that somehow we can allow ourselves to share, since we are all in the world in a similar situation, which is dissimilar based on the geography, etc. But it is somehow we are all stuck in houses or wherever and cannot move too much. And so this is the first time, I think, that the whole globe is having the same situation. So it leaves the door open to also share a little bit about this, and then go in and help our clients to reflect on it.
Thank you for bringing this point. And before we finish, Nancy, you want to say?
Yes, with all respect to Nicolas, we are in the same storm, but we're in different boats. Definitely, there are many, many people who are suffering have been suffering for centuries, generation after generations, about inequality, social injustice. So we have to be very mindful that we don't say we're all in the same situation, because we definitely aren't. And just wanted to say something about that.
But I love your metaphor. I love your metaphor. We're in different boats, but in the same.
Some people are in yachts, some people are in rowboats, right? It's very, very different.
Okay, so let's spend a couple of minutes before we go. I want everybody to get, I hope everybody working, taking some notes. I want you to take a couple of 40 minutes. I want you to write down a reflection from the conversation today so far in the first 2 hours, something that is in your mind, something that you're thinking, something that you may want to do, or something that you want to keep exploring, something that you want to take with you from these 2 hours conversation, for the first 2 hours of the day today. So let's spend 1 minute writing down something that you're taking with you. And I don't know if Kristine, if you want to say anything else before we go to our lunch break?
Well, this is the one. This is my favorite quote from the book, from Peter Hawkins. It's a strategy question, and it spoke to me, so I share with you all. What can I uniquely do that the world of tomorrow needs?
Thank you. Elaine, anything you want to say?
I love this quote as well, and I just want to remind you that we're going to reconnect at the top of the hour. So we're looking forward to seeing you. Our next speaker is Kimberly Freeman. And so again, at the top of the hour, 12 o'clock Pacific time, we will reconnect. So take this time to recharge your batteries, grab a snack, and be ready for some more learning and sharing and asking questions and building community.
Okay, so we'll see you in 1 hour. Have a good lunch.